What's up, peeps? I'm Jen. Welcome to Copper Cactus DIY. In today's video, I'm doing decorative painting and decoupage on this enormous 4-drawer dresser. It's the Unique Antique Challenge hosted by Crystal at the Crafty Creech and co-hosted by the Life of a Show Flipper winner, Lavon at Statement Designs. I'm pulling out all the secret stash supplies for this one, so stick around because I'm getting started on transforming this dresser right now.
So this is all I have that I took out of the dresser that definitely will need, this will all definitely need to go back in the dresser. That's great, however, I still have all this in the top drawer. I'm gonna find somewhere for all of this. Once I do, this entire thing is empty and I can finally start pulling off all of this foam and hot glue.
I'm attempting to refinish this entire oversized dresser inside my studio because the garage is out of commission due to this. It's just entirely too cold out there now, so I removed the drawers and put them as far to the side as possible. Then I pulled off all of this spray foam. I did this for a Halloween-themed challenge many years ago where I made it look like the vines grew right up and over this dresser because it belonged to a swamp witch. I knew this piece needed a refresh now, but I had no clue what to do to revive her. That is, until the gals announced the theme for this challenge. The theme? 2 sides. So, on this piece, I'll be striving for balance between light and dark and using butterflies to pull that off. First though, I need to scuff sand to break the surface of the top coat and give a tooth for my paint to grip onto. I cleaned off the dust and I left everything to dry. I did the drawers off camera. I painted the base black with my favorite dark black chalkboard paint. This only took a few minutes, but sadly I'm low on this paint, so I can't afford mistakes. I plan to use it for one entire side of this cabinet, and I need that side to feel like the void, the furthest reaches of nothingness. Under normal circumstances, this incredibly pigmented paint will do just that. Because of my angle while painting, however, I didn't notice a critical step that I forgot to do before coat 1. Turns out in my excitement to get this piece going, I did something very out of character and I missed a critical prep step. I missed removing the residue from my double-sided tape and I painted right over it. The paint didn't really stick and that's not gonna work, so I scraped all that off, including that coat of paint. It came off pretty easily due to the shellac coat that I'd put on during my first makeover, thankfully. A quick vacuum of the debris and a wipe down off camera, then I could paint the real first coat. The second coat off camera happened about 5 hours later and I left it to dry overnight. But once it was dried to the touch, I was able to lift this piece back up and get the drawers reinstalled so I could get started on my decorative elements. Before I tilted her upright, I tapped or pushed these pushpin style feet into the corners. They're round, but I set them in from the edge. Then I applied a coat of Howard feed-in wax to give the underside some protection. When that dried, I could get her up onto her brand new shoes. So to do my light and dark, I am going to use some of the colors that are already existing in my studio, such as will be right next to it on these cabinets and on this cabinet that will be right next to it in the room. So the first thing I really need to do is establish the center line. I'm not trying to be super specific here because I am going to do a blend. So here's the thing about my paint. This is the color that I would love to have for one side because it's actually going to go a lot more cohesively, I guess you could say, than my lighter coral shade. However, this is an all-in-one paint, and I have tested doing a blend with this before, and it just doesn't work. So instead, I'm going to use this chalk paint from Chucky Chicks as my base coat. It's a darker orange, obviously, much darker, but the color that I want to eventually end up with is this pinky coral shade from FAUX. This is a home decor chalk, and this paint has never let me down. I think the Chalky Chicks color is going to be good as a base color underneath this to only maybe need one, especially with this dark background. So I'm getting started on tape, and then I'm just getting started on paint. One last look though, right? One last look over here. You see what I mean about this paint being so good it resembles the void? So good. I left coat 1 to dry for the night, but only on the black side. On the orange side, I came back about an hour later and gave it the first coat of my peachy pink chalk paint. It was closer to the color I wanted than that orange was, but as you'll hear in a minute, still not quite there. But since it was closer, I finished a full coat for coverage. Then I let it dry overnight, and I came back ready to add a custom mixed color in the morning. This was the color I was going for, but basically Pepto-Bismol pink is what I got instead. So I tested out custom mixing a few colors last night. I am going to go with this color right here, which it's funny because on camera right now, beside this hot pink, it looks way more peach, but when you see it in life next to my drawer, it really does work. So I'm going to put that on this half of the dresser, and then I'm going to just start blending on the top and front. once the first coat of this paint dried to the touch, I could get with blending. Now, I'm not going for a big blend here. Instead, I want something where just the line between light and dark might be a tiny bit fuzzy. I gave the surface and the brush a light mist of water, and then I used some of each color on the ends of my floppy straight cut purdy. I kept the brush and colors mostly centered and went back and forth. I didn't overwork the paint though, I just did it until it wasn't patchy.
That's a blend I can live with.
I repeated the process on the front and top edge of the drawers, and I left the piece to dry while I went to go check out the pieces that I plan to use as my decorative elements on the front.
Alright, I think it's about time to open this decoupage paper and see what I got.
Ooh, I think it's gonna be perfect. Oh yeah, that is exactly what I'm talking about. Ooh, so cute. I lined up the poster in about the center of the blend using painter's tape to keep it in place. I cut around parts of the image so it would fit better and so I could move some images to other areas. I've never decoupaged something shiny before and I want it to lie perfectly flat, so I used Mod Podge right out of the container to attach the image, then a Bondo scraper to gently smooth over the surface and level out that glue. I placed parchment paper between a heavy book and the image and left it to dry for about an hour, fingers crossed. Method approved! I only have so many of these heavy books to keep things flat though, which means I had to do this in phases throughout the day. The decorative elements on this piece took way longer than I originally anticipated. I started with the smaller pieces around the outside edges and worked my way inward. In order to line up the butterfly and avoid potential for the glue drying too fast or air pockets forming when I was sticking it down, I cut across the width of the image between the second and third drawer and applied it in 2 pieces. Everything was dry in the morning. I did 2 things off camera. I cut the other 2 drawer lines to separate them, and I mixed custom paint colors to match the existing colors on this poster. Hot tip, if you have empty plastic frog tape containers, mixing small bits of decorative paints in them is a good second life use. I put a layer of press and seal on mine because acrylics dry really quickly and I stored this overnight. Normally though, I mix and use the paint immediately out of this container, then I rinse them out and I store them for future use. This hand painting stage took me almost an entire day to do. I wasn't even going for perfection, but I did try to mostly stay inside the lines when possible. After I finished all of these details, I went back and added black to dull the sheen of the rest of this paper, and that's really what took me the most time because I have janky brushes that don't hold a point and so many nooks and crannies to fill here. My middle-aged back was screaming at me after this one. It dried for the night, mostly because I was just too exhausted to do anything more until morning. After this, though, I could stand the dresser up again. While I touch up these colors between drawers, I want to again thank Crystal and Levon for hosting this unique antique challenge. The playlist is linked at the end of this video and below, so make sure to watch everyone's awesome makeovers. Peeps, this will be my last big project of 2025. In 2 weeks, I'm sharing the makeover on my studio entry table, the last piece in this room. Then, my before and after studio tour is coming up in January. So go get subscribed now if you're not already. And don't forget to like this video and leave a comment if you enjoyed it. For those here during the premiere, thanks for chatting today. You all rock. But this is all the work I have to share, so stay tuned for the beauty shots coming up, and thanks for being here and watching. Later, peeps!